I think AI is going to drive the biggest bubble anyone has ever seen. And the simple reason for it is that
when did you arrive at like agents are going to be this very important trend?
these agents are going to be hyper focused on you. They'll predict and know exactly what you want. What I'm trying to tell you is that I didn't buy Filecoin early enough. Are you going to build high quality agents that actually do something useful? I'm tired of all like the Twitter slot bots.
Do you think that these early movers recover, or is it a new set of companies and projects that are going to kind of infiltrate?
Closed source is still going to win in 6 to 9 months. The reason why they're going to win is...
Are there any thoughts you have that this could be not as big as we think it will be? Excellent. First question I want to ask you, just to start off, what were you doing a year ago? Because you've had this kind of massive come up. So, look back 12 months. What were you working on?
Completely the opposite of what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So I was technically jobless. I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And I was honestly like bumbling around every day, kind of like concerned, but still kind of like very committed to figuring out what this was. Because normally in my life, I would just kind of hop on to the next thing of whatever society expected of me. So I would like join the next job or take the next corporate pay package or whatever.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I was just fixated with figuring out whether myself wanted to do something new. And so I took the time to do that. And that's what I was doing a year ago. I had a Google Doc. It was... the whole purpose of that Google Doc was to figure out who I was and what I wanted to focus on. It started off with who are you and what do you like? I was listing dumb stuff like I really like food and I really like working out and I really, really like nerding out about stuff, particularly technology. And I listed a bunch of things and obviously crypto was top of that. But at that point, I was still kind of jaded with the industry. And I think that was the only moment or one of the few moments that I was jaded at this industry, because normally I've been like a blind optimist. But after the whole like NFT blow up, I was like, oh my God, like, is this industry going to be taken seriously at some point? But yeah, that doc then progressed into like a 10-pager kind of like novella about my life. And at the end of it, I came to the conclusion of what I wanted to do going forwards. And I started executing pretty much then, just about a year ago. Yeah.
And for people not familiar with like your brand or your journey, what was that next step? How do you define that?
Yeah, so I kind of split it into a few core components of, who I am. So number one is I am just a curious nerd at heart. The way I kind of describe it is I kind of think of myself as like a dumb ape. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like I know what I don't know, and it's quite a lot. So I just kind of like ask questions to figure this out. And for me specifically, my obsession is on the kind of like crypto side of things for whatever reason. And I've tried doing different things. And it's always brought me back here. So I knew I wanted to research in crypto. And then naturally, this might shock you, but I enjoy the investing and making money component of crypto, right? Like many others. And I was like, I wonder if there's a way that I can combine the research thing with making the money thing. And then, just like live off of that. And my simple goal then was like, hey, if it can pay my rent, I'd be super, super happy.
Right.
But then I was like, okay, well, what you're describing is probably going to be like some kind of a fund, Ejaaz. So are you going to join a fund? I don't like working for people at this point. And I kind of like it's been a pattern going forward through all my job.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to start a fund. But then I'm like, there are like thousands of funds out there. Well, what's going to be my unique point? And I went through this like whole framework of things, right? I was like looking at other funds. I was like, okay, what do they do? What are they not looking at? And all of that was for waste because I realized that the unique thing was, and my strategy and the way that I would approach these things and the experience that I had. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to start my fund and it's going to be focused on frontier sectors. And that's just a fancy way of saying things that really excite me and give me energy. And at that point, it was two things. It was about 95% crypto AI and 5% consumer stuff. That's memes for anyone that is listening. And I wrote up my thesis for it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this because I get to wake up every day and spend every night just staring at my laptop, absorbing, learning, talking to teams on Discord, meeting them in real life. And, if I can scale that to a fund side of things, it would be awesome. So,
Right.
yeah.
And what was like day one of that like, right?
Day one is the sexiest part for anyone that has set up a company before, which is you reach out to lawyers and you take a call with them.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you can't sense it, I'm being very sarcastic because those lawyering calls are very long and are probably like the biggest hump to overcome when you start everything. So I went down the legal process. It took me like, I don't know, a couple months to set up. But if I could run it back now, I'll probably fine tune it down to like maybe 2 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one stream that was going on. The next thing was I was like, well, I need to get some LPs and stuff who might be interested. And, I kind of like just went down that path. So I didn't have a plan. I just had like an urge to get this done.
Right. Well, there's two interesting components there. Like, first of all, the idea of doing something. A lot of the ventures in my life that I've been most successful at are the ones where they're like, I don't call up the lawyer.
Yeah.
If I like do all the overhead, foundational work, sometimes it just doesn't even play out.
Yeah.
And if I like, I'm really pursuing an idea, then I'll be like, all right, well, we'll figure out the structure later. We'll figure out how it's going to work later.
Yes.
We'll figure out how to set up the bank
That's
account
the
later.
American way. And I need to become more American in that sense.
Interesting.
To be honest, my life for like since I moved to America has been a progression of me unlearning Britishisms, because I'm from England, and learning how to think outside the box. So that lawyering thing is classic. Okay, I got to sign up and do something. I've got to get all the legal stuff done. Whereas the American version is like, you know what? Screw the SEC. I'm just gonna launch some shit and see how it goes. So I'm with you.
That's funny. Yeah, no, like, the legal structure sometimes is like, you have to prove out the concept before it's worth investing, like, a lot of money in lawyers. So it's probably a bad idea, but I guess, for the Americans, it works out. Do you feel like there's like a big fundamental difference between like the Europer and the American?
A lot of people ask me, especially Brits, when they meet me out here, they ask me, oh, well, do you have any plans to move back? And I don't hesitate. My answer is no. And listen, England is my home. I love it for many other reasons. But for me, I think the stark contrast, at least in the places that I've stayed in America, so that's kind of like, major cities,
right?
The mentality is very different. The way I would describe it is kind of like in Europe in general, when you suggest a wild idea like, hey, I think we should create a decentralized database and potentially set up a sovereign monetary value asset, they'd look at you and be like, mate, we're going to the pub. What are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? It's 5 p.m. Like, come on, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's Wednesday, right? But in America, they'll laugh at you, and then they'll say, all right, here's 4 people that could help you achieve this. So I love that mentality because it pushes me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, when I work with European teams, they're like, yeah, well, we're thinking about shipping the MVP in like 6 to 9 months, maybe a year. Yeah. And then you talk to an American, startup founder, and they're like, what if the future doesn't involve money?
Yeah, yeah, and it's 2 ends of each extreme. But I think like over the years, we've seen the patterns play out for both sides. And I think America, American mentality in general, there's a lot that you can critique, but you can't critique the fact that it's driven innovation for decades now.
Well, I also saw like this tweet that went viral on Twitter, which was way broader than crypto, but it was like the market cap of Home Depot is greater than the amount of startups, or the market cap of all the startups that have come out of Europe in the last 25 years or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It's insane.
Interesting. Are there any other geographies that you think are like particularly successful in entrepreneurship or in crypto entrepreneurship specifically?
Yeah, but it's a different approach. Okay, so let me explain. I am half Malay, and when I was like 9 or 10, you're laughing. What was that?
It's so funny because like I forget who I was talking to. I was talking to a Singaporean guy actually about Malaysian founders.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, the Malaysians are so good because, I mean, we'll shout some of them out right now, like Pendle, Tian from Pendle, the CoinGecko guys, Lau Brothers.
Jansen from Virtuals.
Exactly, yeah. Etherscan
Yeah.
is Malaysian.
Yeah.
Like
It's a cabal. It's a
the
cabal.
Avo,
Yeah. Oh,
Julian, yeah.
Julian. Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Oh, Jupiter as well.
Oh, yeah. Meow. Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a cabal out there, and it, when I was like 9, I moved out there with my family, and we were out there for, I don't know, like 7 years. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is Asia in general are kind of hardcore when it comes to this stuff, but it's a different kind of hardcore. It's more like strict traditional Asian stereotypes, which is like put your head down, stay at your desk, you're not leaving,
Right.
nothing else matters, and you're going to focus on this. And that kind of mentality drives certain protocols that like require a lot of discipline. That's why you just mentioned like some of the names that Malaysian cabal have just done so well. I think so. Asia's like specifically, I'll call out Singapore. I know Teng Yan. I don't know if you've seen his stuff. He writes about crypto AI long form. He's based out there. A bunch of the Delphi guys, researchers. I think it's Pondering Durian. Is out there. Shout out. I read his stuff all the time. Never met him in person. No idea what he looks like. And a few others. So that kind of mentality really helps, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think like the immigrant, whether it's like really wherever to the US pipeline, like a lot of immigrant entrepreneurs tend to be very, very successful for whatever reason.
Well, the reason is simple. They come here and, well, I speak for myself, right? They immigrate here and then they're like, oh, holy shit, this shit is great. That's crazy, right? I kind of like, so I live in New York, right? It's like crypto capital, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I feel for the people that grew up in New York because I'm like, you actually have no idea what it's like to hop on a plane and see that city landing in and then meet everyone for the first time because you grew up in this place, right? So,
yeah. You know, if you're talking about kind of that early 2024 to mid 2024, especially like focusing on this frontier tech, that was when memes were exploding. It felt like it was like the start of a little bit of a stray from like fundamentals.
Nihilism.
And yeah, exactly, like this financial nihilism that started creeping into kind of retail attitudes, anti-institution sentiment, anti-VC sentiment. So it was probably a hard time to kind of like start a fund. What were the first projects you were interested in looking at?
So I was heavily focused on crypto AI, and by that time, or around that time actually, it had started becoming the number one dominant mindshare. So, if you guys think of like the sentiment market share board from, I think it's Kaito,
right?
It was that block, it was there, right? But there was nothing really there. It was like
it was not like an investable narrative.
And so I was kind of like looking at this and I was like, okay, markets are down / ranging. And my animalistic senses was being like, Ejaaz, don't do this, which means that I had to do it, right? Because like I've got to counter trade myself, right? So that was one on the fund side. I was like forcing myself to do that. And then on the crypto AI side, there wasn't too much. There was nothing to do with agents at that point, right? So it was what I call the AI resource stack, which sounds super boring because depending on who's reading about it, it kind of is, right? It's like, oh, you need data, you need compute, all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, the classic crypto way is like, oh, I'll create a network for that, right? And I'll incentivize people to do it. And there were a few projects that were emerging that are now still solid and extremely good. But that's what the market was kind of like bare at that point. BitTensor was kind of like the only main one.
Right. Yeah, that was like, I know people were even trying to create like content ecosystems around BitTensor because it was really like the only investable AI coin.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we saw a massive run up in the token.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah. So then kind of by, mid to late summer, that's when we really saw like people starting to talk about agents. When did you arrive at like agents are going to be this very important trend?
As soon as Mark Andreessen had responded to that truth terminal thing, it just appeared on my timeline, and I was like, what do you mean this is an AI? Like, what do you mean this is an agent?
Right.
Right? And then I went down a rabbit hole immediately because I didn't have anything else to do, right? I had time on my hands. I was researching this stuff. And instantly I was like, okay, this is going to be something pretty big. And the reason I would love to say that I just knew, but it was like a compounding effect of pretty much my entire journey in crypto, which was and this is a very left curve take, which just I ended up being lucky on, which is like I learned about blockchains, super excited about it, but I never really believed that humans would be the people to use these blockchains 24/7.
Right.
It makes zero sense. Why would we build a completely alternative financial system built out of software and tools and then expect the guy that sleeps for 8 hours and has mood swings and has other shit to do to operate it 24/7? It's just super weird. We're building out a 24/7
Right.
global financial market run by humans which aren't awake. It's just weird. So I was kind of like, there has to be something else that operates these things. And I never thought of agent. I never thought of like AI. But as soon as I saw that kind of Gospel of Goatsy stuff go down, I had a similar effect of like when I read about Ethereum or Bitcoin, I was like, oh, this could be used for other stuff.
For me, it kind of felt like a bit of a return to fundamentals, and obviously we can talk about the progression of agents and like the emergence of a lot of vapor, and now this kind of like correction in the agentic world. However, it was like they were still kind of meme coins, but they were memes that had like this kind of potential future written into them. And it became a lot more exciting to me to like operate in the space. I remember coming back from Token 2049 and starting to see this like trend emerge. I remember Mode launched the Ethereum L2 like launched an agentic, I forget what they call it, marketplace or platform or something, and I was like, okay, we might be getting into a new trend here.
Yeah. The way I describe it is I haven't felt the similar energy or excitement around when agents popped up, specifically agents, not other crypto AI stuff, since the DeFi days, since Uniswap launched their token. And the main point to make here is it was across every subsector of crypto. Everyone was talking about it. This wasn't as...
there were the gaming agents, the DeFi agents, the infra agents.
I had my sister who has literally never asked me a question about crypto in her life and is like creative artist, hit me up and be like, I'm reading about this agent that is talking to another agent and it's like now creating a type of religion. And I was like, yeah, go check out infinitebackrooms.org or whatever.
It's wild.
And her friends, she's like 5 years younger than me, was just going through this on a Friday night. And that's when I was sitting there and I was like, there's something very, very new and enchanting about this.
Right. It was compelling in a different way.
Well, it's like a little human, right? We're kind of like, let's...
it's like going to the the monkey, at the zoo, the monkey exhibit. That's or whatever. Where you're like, okay, wait, this is like me or something.
Yeah, you're like, it's very human, right? Yeah. Why is it looking at me? What? It's facial expressions, and we're just enchanted. For some reason, humans just want to see something that's not human, that I can't compare, right? Because you're a human. I'm like, okay, right, maybe I had to compete with you, blah, blah. But like, if it's a thing, same way with like children, you're kind of like, oh, I just want you to like win, just go do something cool. Like, I'm down.
Right.
And agents kind of take that to like a new level.
Yeah, these early agentic days also overlapped with like the fair launch platforms, right? Yes. We saw a bunch of like Pump Fun, Virtuals.
I like that you call it a fair launch platform, by the way. Most people don't.
Instead of like meme coin platform or something?
Yeah, or like Extractor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I agree. It is a really good fair launch. Yeah.
But, it kind of, it really upset like the paradigm of how we look at, like companies that come to market. I can think of a lot of people like founders that were, came from AI. I have a good friend who's an AI researcher, and that like he saw, like Fartcoin and got interested in, and saw Mark Andreessen tweeting about this stuff and got interested in the space. For you as like a professional investor, what did that look like having to participate in this kind of arena that was like more retail adjacent?
Yeah. So I kind of look at these things in two lenses. Lens number one is, if you have an open stock market, which is effectively what crypto is, whether people like to, say, oh, it's a governance token or not, it's a stock market, it's going to be driven by human sentiment. Look at most of the stocks outside of the Magnificent Seven. It's all sentiment driven. You could argue that most of the Magnificent Seven action over the last year has been sentiment driven, right? So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that like my framework for this AI agent platform is the reason why the price is going up or down. Most of crypto plays beta to all of macro stuff. So I just start from that lens, which is like, okay, don't take any of this personally, right? A lot of this is going to be narrative driven. Okay. And that could be played to your advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
If AI is the most spoken about thing within crypto, chances are the tokens are either going to go really up or really down. And we're experiencing the down part right now, or we have experienced the down part.
Right.
The second lens that I look at it is on the fundamental side of things, because I think, you know, the midwit curve meme?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's trying to be on the right or on the left. But ideally, you want something that applies to the entire IQ spectrum. And I think you have to therefore have something with fundamentals. Meme coins, pure meme coins lack that. So when I was looking at like all the Farcoin stuff, I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. So on the narrative side of things, I was like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. But I was like, long term, would fundamentals drive this? And then I'm asking myself other questions. I'm like, do macro people, like non-crypto people, do they look at crypto? Do they take some seriously? And I think they're starting to, right? Because like the ETFs were in, Trump was about to get into power, I think, or maybe he just did. And all these things, legislations were about to get passed. Gary Gensler was about to be on his way out. So I'm like, maybe they'll care about fundamentals more. So I was kind of like looking at this with different lens. What I'm trying to tell you is that I didn't buy Farcoin early enough. Yeah, I'm coping basically. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I kind of look at the whole agentic thing, this like narrative we saw in the fall, partly kind of come about because retail investors couldn't get that much exposure to the AI narrative
Correct.
in like equities markets
Yep.
or in crypto markets. There weren't a lot of crypto assets to invest in. Some of them, to a lot of them, were vapor. And then on like the equity side of things, it was like, you know, there were maybe a few companies, but the rest were like, you know, ChatGPT, or I guess OpenAI is like, you know, raising multiple $1 billion in private rounds. Like it's hard to get exposure to a lot of the AI space as a retail investor. So when agents came about, it was like a way to get exposure to this narrative.
Yeah. You're right, but I'm now looking at this in retrospect after all the price action we saw. You know, the boom and whatever the bust.
Right.
The peak market cap I think was what, like $17 billion for all the AI coins, and I think that included like Bitensor and it's like crazy FTV and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like a single AI company outside of crypto raised that much,
Right.
or is valued at that much. So I don't know if everyone came in. It's definitely hyped, but I'm wondering where like that additional flow would come from. Probably from like funds or whatever. So I don't think it's permeated quite yet.
Well, yeah, I interviewed Murad, who had obviously like the meme coin thesis
Sure.
at Token 2049 in Singapore in September, and that was kind of a lull in the meme coin market, and then we saw a secondary explosion in meme coins. But he talked about the idea that like these things come in like the form of bubble and then like bigger bubble.
Yeah.
And this happened with DeFi. This happened with meme coins, and now I think it's possible that it's going to happen with AI.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
Because it's like you see this first run up, and it's like, okay, we're kind of establishing the narrative in the space. We're kind of identifying what these patterns are going to look like, and then we need a period to cool off, and then we'll have like the real run up. And I think it's possible that that's where we are at in the like AI agentic space.
Yeah, my view of it is I think AI is going to drive the biggest bubble anyone has ever seen. And the simple reason for it is that, number one, it can make money so easily. Because if it can, you know, the simplistic way of looking at it is it can replace your job, or it could replace a lot of work, and it could do it at 100 times the speed and 100 times less of the cost. Obviously, it's going to make a shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is it's going to figure out innovation that you or I couldn't do in our entire lifetime in like an hour, right? Look at OpenAI's deep research agent. I don't know if you've used it. It's insane.
Right.
And I'm like, what am I doing? If I had this during my thesis at university, this would be unreal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, it's going to make a lot of money. And then I'm looking at all the models that are released every week now and how people are so engaged. I'm looking at all the agents being released, and I'm like, okay, well, people are always going to be entertained by this, right? They're always going to look for the next thing. That dopamine hit is going to keep hitting, right? And then I'm looking at the macro world, and I'm like, well, we've just inflated the economy with a shit ton of dollars. They're going to need to figure out a way out. So it needs to be bigger numbers, bigger GDP. If I could do Trump's accent, I would. And bigger amounts of money, reduce the debt, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, AI is the only feasible sector to drive all of that. So it has to, in my opinion. Yeah.
There's a big question about like AI value capture, right? Where people are like, well, is it going to be the open source model? Maybe not, and chat GPT wrappers are not good either. And like, who knows where in the stack that people are going to be able to actually like make money or add value. Do you have any opinions on this?
Yeah. Well, firstly, on the chat GPT wrapper take, I think I'm not saying it's your take, but I'm saying that take is mid. Because like websites are wrappers for like other things, like so for APIs, like it's just a terrible take. So putting that aside, closed source. Okay, my blunt answer is closed source is still going to win in the near to midterm. And when I say near to midterm, I'm talking like it's a shorter timeline than most people would say. Most people would say 2 to 3 years. I'm going to say like 6 to 9 months, right? Because there's a new model being dropped every day.
Right.
It's the exponential curve is just going crazy. So the reason why they're going to win is even though we had DeepSeek launch, and for those of you who are listening, it's this model that launched that showed that, hey, you don't need a shit ton of money to train these models. You could use a different kind of technique. Even though that's happened, it's going to take time to transgress or move into the open source world. But more importantly, number two, you need a really good app experience, and to make money is what I'm saying. And I've spent a lot of time looking at the trad AI world, which is like the closed source typically, and then the open source AI world, which has mainly been embellished by crypto. And there's still a stark gap between the two in terms of product differentiation. But I do see that gap kind of closing over time. I think open source will matter really more, much more, when these models start being censored in very different ways. And it's kind of like a very, philosophical answer to give, like censoring what? Like, do I care? But it will become more serious once people realize that they can't search certain things, or it's kind of making them vote on different things in real life, or like kind of like tweak their taste to buy a certain product, and they're going to be like, oh, that's kind of icky. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and the second point that I'll make, and then I'll shut up, is I don't believe AI really scales without crypto. And the common answer, feedback I receive from that is like, bro, Stripe's gonna like blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a good effort, but in terms of economies of scale, in terms of abstracting away everything that exists right now in the traditional financial world, my bet is crypto is a much sleeker and simple way to do it.
Yeah, it's actually a kind of novel take, and it like the fact that crypto specifically is a value add for decentralization.
We have a use.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think all this block space and L2s and chains that we've been making purely to just create cheaper fees and transactions, all that kind of stuff, and to be able to spin up assets at a click of a button or whatever, is actually going to end up becoming useful and used, but it's not by humans. It'll be used by this AI.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In crypto, like there have been examples of highly successful first movers, but there have also been examples where the first mover is not the most successful.
Yep.
And I think you're kind of bullish on some of these early movers. Obviously, we saw a couple kind of unicorns emerge. Just to mention a few, kind of AI16Z is one. Virtuals. Do you think that these platforms? I know like Virtuals. Their revenue has fallen from like 6 figures a day to like sub $1,000.
$800 yesterday.
Yeah. So like we're definitely in a cool off period at the very least.
Yep.
Do you think that these early movers recover, or is it a new set of companies and projects that are gonna kind of infiltrate?
There's one foolproof way to answer that question, and that is to just look at the team and know the team and see what they're doing. At this point, it doesn't matter about the roadmap and stuff. It's like, what's the team doing? What are they doing to solve the problem that they're facing? So let's take the idea of virtuals, right? Their fee revenue has gone down. And again, for those who don't know what the hell virtuals is, it's kind of like an agent launch platform. And the reason why they made so much money is every time someone designed and launched an agent, they would need to pay a fee. And also, if you wanted to buy that agent token, you would need, ready for it? Virtuals token to buy that token. So the tokenomics were good.
Right.
But now people are like, oh, my AI coins are down. I don't want to make agents anymore. They all sound the same. And that's a valid thing. So typically you might expect a team to just pack it up and be like, well, I made 50 million. I think they made like 50 to 60 million off of fees over the last like 4 months.
That's wild.
I'll just pack it up and go. But the team, I'm using the example of Virtuals, has just been heads down, trying to figure this thing out. But that doesn't mean they're kind of like safe in the worry, because all the agent platforms right now have just been like token launches, right? And to be honest, I don't really care for that. What's interesting to me is like, are you going to build high quality agents that actually do something useful now? I'm tired of all like the Twitter slop bots, and like, can you like figure out a novel way for these agents to do something useful for crypto people and maybe for other people that aren't necessarily in crypto? And that's what I've pretty much been doing for the last week. I've just been like talking to as many people as I can and playing around with as many demos as I can to figure out what that answer is. So to answer your question bluntly, I don't know, Jack, but I'm forming a thesis about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of doubled, tripled, 10x down on the AI narrative this fall.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of seeing like a correction. Sentiment has gone against it. A lot of people are calling a lot of it vapor. You're still heavily invested. So it's kind of like an interesting point. And it really gives you another opportunity to double down on your thesis. You know? Yeah.
Oh, I haven't wavered. And I want to be honest, like, obviously people play ego into a lot of their bets, and I'm no different. But I'm also one to be like, if I'm wrong, I am wrong, and that's okay. I think it's so silly for people to be like, oh, I'm never wrong. Like, I'm just going to double down.
Right.
And so I try and find the counter thesis to my thesis all the time, right? And I haven't quite found a good enough one just yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, I think it's quite consensus that like AI is going to be incredibly impactful. Like, are there any thoughts you have that this could be not as big as we think it will be?
So again, if I'm steel manning the other side of my thesis, it would be these agents actually never end up becoming autonomous, and they just become super enhanced bots. So the difference between an agent and a bot is pre-programmed to go down a set of paths, right? It could either go down path A or path B. An agent doesn't think in paths. It could just things like you or I. It could be like, oh, I might go pop to the groceries now, or do A, B, and C, right? And so if it goes down the bot route, then all this autonomous agent stuff kind of like goes out the wayside, right? And then you need to kind of like take not too indifferent, but a different kind of structure in terms of like what you invest in, right? I think it'll go more on the infrastructure route versus the consumer application side of things, right? I guess the other thesis might be closed source just always wins. And it always leads. And Stripe is able to figure out a way to scale all of this.
Okay, so then the AI, like the upside from AI from an investing perspective, stays it within the Silicon Valley.
Well, I think so, and that's a hot take because a lot of people would disagree with me, and they'll be like, "Oh, bro, like model ownership, data ownership," and my counter to that would be like, the last time Apple updated their software, did you click their terms and services? Did you agree? Yeah. Why did you agree? Did you read the whole thing? No. Right?
Right.
Most of us have bank accounts. So it's like there's a UX and a consumer layer. We can't deny that. There needs to be something useful to use. And so I guess my take is like, if agents don't become a better consumer or app layer for crypto, then it's going to be pretty tough, because we've spent the last like 8 years really trying to figure out the app layer, and aside from like store of value, stablecoins and stuff, and maybe that is the final value of blockchains. We won't go further from that.
Right, and I think we've seen this in like privacy, where it's like ideology is not a value proposition.
Yeah. It's like I care about whether most people care about whether the product is actually like fun or good to use. Yeah.
Speaking of product, like there's an argument to be made that the Twitter slap bots, as you kind of referred to as a sector, is like not novel from a product perspective. What are you excited about from a product perspective?
So firstly, I would say some of the Twitter slot bots, they're not the slot bots, the good ones, like an AI XBT or whatever. It's actually really good. And the reason why I say that is not because they do something novel in terms of like, hey, like you can at them and they make money for you. It's they're really good at garnering a community. They're better than any intern that you hire for any kind of company that posts on Twitter now, right? So if that's the case, you take the example of AIXBT. It was at what is it, 3,000 followers when I first like properly spotted it back in when was it, October or maybe November, and now it's at 500,000 followers. That must be one of the quickest ascents ever, right? And then the obvious next question with any kind of business-minded team would be like, how do I monetize this, right? So like, my guess is they're gonna like dog food a product through that. But anyway, aside from like, I think it's like a stage one is what I'm saying. I think people who think like there must be one single agent for a product, that's not the way to think about it. Just think of like Twitter KOL as like your front man. And then you have other agents doing more useful things. So then your question was like, okay, what are those useful things that we're going to start seeing? The boring answer is it's going to start with crypto native things. So right now, I don't know, do you do a lot of DeFi stuff?
Yeah, of course, every day.
Okay, and you know how to do the DeFi stuff because you know about all the different wallets, all the different chains.
Right.
Maybe you're really passionate about scraping like the $100 that's on one of your other burner wallets and moving it to and fro. But most people really don't want to do that. The amount of people that I've like, that are subscribers to my fund that were like, hey, like Coinbase is saying I can like add your email address and then send you the funds. I'm like, whoa, hang on a second, wait, which address? Like all this kind of stuff. It's just a really awkward kind of thing, right? So I think these agents are just going to abstract away a bunch of this stuff. And I'm already seeing it with like, I don't know, projects like Griffin and whatever. So it's kind of like this abstraction layer that's going to happen through agents. That's number one. But in terms of like major unlocks, I think it'll come with when these agents can kind of like work together. So an example might be agents that work together to make Uniswap liquidity pool super efficient, or agents that manage a on-chain fund that trades better than most humans and it's proprietary. You don't need to know, but like you just add funds similar to like Hyperliquid's market maker vault, right? You just deposit money and it just makes money for you, right? And then you might have agents that check smart contract code and do all these things. Again, sounds all kind of boring, nothing really novel, but it does have a step change in terms of like a user experience.
Right. Plus a different business model and like a ability to really kind of like extract some value.
Yeah. You can. They don't complain about paying them $2 a day. For
yeah, and that's actually the greatest business model we've ever seen is like the ability to make money. Yeah. Like people would pay infinite amounts of money to make more money.
Yeah, exactly. And that scales over time. But it's hard to kind of like shift your mode into looking at a business like that because it's like, oh wait, there's zero humans and the humans that are replacing the humans are superhuman, but they get paid like a fraction of what a human would get paid. That means I could make a profit on something that I normally wouldn't have ever done.
Right. What about like the furthest out there ideas, like the wildest ideas? Maybe it takes years to have the ability to do this, or we don't have models smart enough to do this yet. But like, what is the frontier that you think that we could explore?
Yeah, so one agent to rule them all. So each person, we're getting very Black Mirror-esque here.
Right, like Hal from...
Pretty much. Yeah. HAL 2000 Space Odyssey? Yeah. So you will have your own personal agent. It will potentially look like you or look like someone who you would be very grateful to speak to and confide in. It would have not only a digital presence, but a physical presence as well. So I don't know if you've seen some of the crazy robot demos over the last literal week. Yeah. These things are getting like scary good. I don't know if you've ever had Andrew Kang on this show, but like Andrew, like I think his best trade this cycle was he just aped Figure 8,
I saw
the robot, and like now it's like marked up to like $25. And like the point is like these robots are, and it sounds crazy, right? Where like I don't know about you, but I'm in the generation where I watch iRobot, and I'm like come on, that's like we're super far off. And now I'm looking at this. There's actually some guy walking around a robot at ETH Denver that looks like that robot, and I'm like, what is going on? How did he get that? Right? So these agents or a personal agent for you that knows, you know how like you can like pick up your phone and you can be like, premium whey and luxury garments for my birthday, and then you start getting adverts for
Mhm.
stuff.
Right. Yeah.
These agents are going to be hyper focused on you.
Uh-huh.
They'll predict and know exactly what you want. And the side effect of this is this: we might end up getting just super lazier or freer to do whatever the hell we want, because we'll have robots go do all our physical work, and a hyper personalized digital agent do all your digital stuff as well. So you're kind of left to do what exactly? What's your kind of value there? And I'm kind of like figuring that out.
Mhm.
The Sam Altman answer is like, oh, UBI, you get to like create and do whatever you want. I think that's not the best take, but I think it'll evolve. We don't know.
Yeah, I think an interesting take there is like capital allocator is one of the few jobs that does stick around in like the super AI state.
Correct. So, good Alexander, I don't know what his real name. I'm guessing it's like Alex. Speaks about this or spoke about it a while ago, which is there are two winners in this world where AI just takes over everything. Two human winners, shall I say. One is the capital allocators, as you said, that invest appropriately and own the equity stake in whatever this is, the governing board. And then the AI experts, which are very small,
Right.
a small group of people, right?
Yeah.
And the rest become, I don't know, commoditized in a weird way.
Uh-huh. So you kind of remain hyper bullish on this space. I think hyper bullishness in a specific directional bet has been one of the great ways that people have kind of like made names and fortunes in the space. Like, where do you see the next? How long do you see this time frame? Or how long is the time frame that this develops over? And like, are you immediately bullish? Do you think it'll be a multi-year journey? Like, how should people be thinking about the time span that this is going to develop over?
If it is executed right, this will be for the rest of our lives. And for all the exciting stuff that we've spoken about and we envision, I would say probably the next 5 years. But I'm actually going to maybe go against that and shorten that down a bit, because this stuff is moving exceedingly quick. And so I think it'll take some time to figure out, mostly because even the traditional AI world don't know what the app or iPhone moment looks like just yet.
Right.
But once that's figured out, I guarantee you it's going to accelerate very, very quickly. And just kind of zooming out, I just want to point out a trend, which is everything is being digitized, including the number one thing that makes the world go round and round and round, which is money, stocks, bonds, financial instruments. They're all going to be slapped on some kind of chain layer. And in that world, that means the thesis of people are just going to increasingly live in a digital world and spin up digital assets will become true. And if that actually ends up happening, then AI will be the number one most important thing, and crypto will underpin most of that. So, well.
I think some people have this fear that like this is the last chance, like you got one more cycle to make it into generational wealth or whatever. There's like this urgency that a lot of people feel. Is that fair? And like, how do you manage that? Where it's like, on one hand, I need to be patient and look over long-term horizons. On the other hand, like, I don't know how much opportunity I have left.
Yeah. So a few things there is, when we say a lot of people are saying that, are we talking about crypto Twitter or are we talking about everyone? What do you think?
I think both. There's sentiment in both places, right?
Yeah,
like,
okay.
For example, in like trad tech, right, computer science majors are like going out of business, right?
Yeah.
As like a concept.
Yeah.
So, I think there's worries on that side, and obviously crypto Twitter is hyper impatient always.
So my left curve take is like, when everyone's worried about something happening, it's probably not going to happen. I would be more concerned about when everyone's really bullish about something happening, that's probably not going to happen. So the left curve take is like, I don't know if it'll play out like that or exactly like that. I think we actually might have longer than we think. Number two, people forget we literally have been building this open source stock market, but it hasn't been legalized. It hasn't been able to play. And we are just entering the era where it is going to be formally recognized.
Yeah.
So whatever, I don't know, is this a non-consensus take? I think the fun is literally about to start. When people are like, oh my God, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to make money. I'm like, I actually unironically think you're a little bit early.
Yeah, I always think about crypto where it's like longer than you want, but quicker than you expect.
Yes.
Where it's like it's like kind of flatlining here,
Yeah.
and then we have like the inflection.
Yeah. It's the Kobe tweet, right? He goes, the journey from 0 to 100K will be the hardest for Bitcoin, but 100K to 250 will be the easiest. And
Right.
listen, I have no fundamentals to back that, but the dude's probably right at some point.
And the other interesting thing about this, like that idea, right, is that like there's actually more value created from 100 to 250 than from 0 to 100.
100%.
There's more wealth created.
Yep. And a wealth created for a lot of people, a lot of normies, right? A lot of non-cabal people.
Right.
And how that plays out is going to be way more impactful than anything we've seen. The thing is, like, with most cycles, numbers get bigger, and people just haven't fathomed the bigger number just yet. You know, Altman floated the $7 trillion dollar number that he wanted to raise for his new venture, right, last year. And obviously that's not going to happen now because these models are getting commoditized. But like, people need to get used to the T word. Once that starts happening, you know,
raise targets.
Correct. Yeah, targets will be raised.
Phenomenal. Ejaaz, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Where can people find you?
Yeah. I am on Twitter at CryptoPunk7213. That's mainly where I kind of spend my time talking. If you have a cool project that you're working on or some demo or agent that I can play around with, please reach out. I would love to play around. And thanks for having me on.
Thanks for your time.